Hi, everybody. I'm Suzanne Giesemann, here dressed in my holiday finest for a holiday session of answering questions that so many of you ask about the afterlife. I look cockeyed here. Welcome. I hope that you're there. And the only reason that I know that I'm speaking to anyone is if you join in on the broadcast, and you can enter your comments as we go. I'll comment on your comments. And for example, Bev Garlip just joined, and I can see that. So there we go. Oh, hi, Leslie. Well, let's get started officially now. So again, I'm Suzanne Giesemann, and this live Facebook event I have entitled The Next 10 Questions People Ask Most Often About the Afterlife. And I would add to that, and about those who are in it. In other words, those who have passed to the other side. So this is the second time that I've done one of the events, and the first one, guess what that one was called? The Top 10 Questions People Ask About the Afterlife. You can see a video of that on my website under resources. My website is suzannegiesemann.com, and go along the top of the menu to resources and go down to videos. But you will also be able to find that one and this one on YouTube. So welcome, and I love that this is live, and I'm seeing comments over here. And I know that people are coming in from all over the country and the world. Hello to Hazel and Elise. Hi, Elise. I know where you are, all over the US and Canada. Hi, Diane. So let's get started, because I do have this narrowed down to the 10 questions that people ask most often. And the very first one is the whole reason that I wanted to do this session for all of you now at the holidays. You know, I'm going to be honest with you, this outfit is driving me crazy. It's crooked. That's the problem of being able to see the video looking back at me. There, how's that? For those of you who like alignment. All righty. I wanted to do this at the holidays because as a medium, I have so many people with loved ones who have passed reaching out to me now and expressing that they're having a little bit of trouble with the holidays, because of course we love our family so much, and the holidays are a time when the family gets together. And when someone has transitioned to the other side, we miss their physical presence so much. But I like what my friend Leanne Hull said about her son Andy, who transitioned several years ago. She doesn't say that Andy died. She says Andy moved, because Leanne knows that Andy's still with her. And that's how I encourage all of you to look at your loved ones who have passed, as if they were on an excursion to a place where you couldn't reach out to them because the cell phone connection may not be so clear, but you know that they still exist. That's what I hope to show you in this session today. So the next top 10 questions would start with this one. Do my loved ones who have passed know what's going on in my life now? Absolutely they do. In every reading I give, I'm not satisfied unless those on the other side show me something going on in their loved one's life right now that shows they're a part of their lives. This is why I'm just so thrilled that my new book came out just in time for the holidays. Still Right Here, the title of it's so perfect for the message that mediumship brings to us, that our loved ones are still right here, part of our lives. So let me share with you an incredible wow that came through in a reading I just did this week for my dear friend Irene, who is featured in the book. Irene Vuvalides and her husband Tony are dear friends of ours, and we were just visiting them in South Carolina. And Irene and I said, let's get together and see what Carly has to say to us. Carly is Irene's daughter, who passed a few years back, and she has a very strong connection with me and allows me to be her voice when I get together with Irene. So we went up to her bonus room in her house, and Irene and I sat together, and I just shifted my awareness and invited Carly to come in. And she gave me all kinds of evidence about herself, things that I don't know about her. But the few items of things going on now really drilled home the point that, yes, in answer to the question, do my loved ones know what's going on now? Yes, they do. In this case, Carly brought to my mind her stepsister, and she showed me her sneezing and coughing. So I looked at Irene and I said, Carly is aware that her sister has a cold right now. The funny thing is, Irene wasn't aware if that was true or not. And she just texted me yesterday and says, oh my goodness, I just found out that Carly's sister does have a bad cold. And I said, and you're surprised at this? Because Carly is so clear when she comes through, and we've learned to absolutely trust that connection, especially with this other really big wow that happened in that session. I said to Irene, now Irene, it came out in the book, so the whole world knows now that you are fanatical about cleaning your floors. She cleans her floors every day. I was witness to that being there in her house. Well, Carly from the other side says, even though my mom cleans her floors every day, if you look under the couch in the living room, there's something little under there. And then she showed me, it's a dog treat. Well, we couldn't wait for the session to be over. We loved the connection with Carly, but our human curiosity got the best of us. We went downstairs. Irene moved the love seat. There was nothing there, but the couch is what Carly pointed to. And for a moment, I thought, oh, what if it was wrong? And then I was called up short by the spirit world saying, don't you trust? And I thought, of course I do. And as Irene got down on her hands and knees with flashlight in hand, it was the most beautiful moment of expectation. And she pulled out this little dog treat. I wish all of you could have seen the look on my husband's face. He's used to this kind of thing happening when I connect with the spirit world, but to be there to witness it, it was incredible, the kind of things the spirit world can bring up. And I said to Carly, how did you know it was there? And from the spirit world, she put the thought in my mind, because we can see through everything. And why wouldn't they? They can walk through walls if they're powerful enough to make their appearance known to us. I haven't personally had that experience, but I've talked to many people who have. So that's the answer to the first question. Yes, your loved ones most certainly know what's going on. Let me acknowledge a few people that I can see are here. Hi, Lynette and Vicky, Irene. Oh, I don't know if you all can see the comments, but Irene, who I just talked about, said, I just finished vacuuming. So there you go. Terry, Jennifer, very good. Let's move on to question number 2. What is it like on the other side? One of the top questions that mediums are often asked. Well, that depends on the level of soul growth achieved by the person who has passed. If you're a really evolved soul, you've learned your lessons, you've learned to be completely loving and have unity consciousness, Christ consciousness, then you're going to bypass the earthly things that many people experience when they first pass and be more of the light being that we all are here and now. However, if you're still very strongly connected with the earthly realms, you're going to want to continue to enjoy the kinds of earthly experiences that you had while you were here. So I want to give you an example that came up in one of my readings that was just a really big wow for me. And that is, I was talking with my client who was a woman who wanted to hear from her husband. He came through very clearly. And when I asked him, what are you doing on the other side? He surprised me by saying, I have both my feet firmly planted on the ground and I'm playing golf every day. Now, that may sound a little strange to people who think, why would you play golf on the other side? This shirt, I should never have worn this shirt, huh? I'm looking backwards. Okay, you know what? I just heard from my guides, forget about the shirt, let it be crooked for the whole show. So that's my human test. Okay, so here's the punchline with the fellow who said, my feet are both firmly planted on the ground and I'm playing golf every day. His wife's eyes got really big and she said, golf was his passion when he was here. But before he passed, one of his legs was amputated. So here, imagine you're on the other side and you want to get the message through to your wife that all is well. You bring up your major passion and you have both feet firmly planted on the ground. What a perfect way to say, I'm not my body. I can create whatever perfect body I want. So those on the other side, it's really funny. Once they show me how they looked when they passed, then they show me that they can take on any form they want. And it's funny that most mediums and people who research the afterlife do say that the spirit takes on a body if it needs to and wants to, that's about 35 years old and in perfect health, perfect weight, and why not? So if you want a more thorough description of what the afterlife is like, I encourage you to go to my homepage, SuzanneGiesemann.com, scroll down about halfway, and there's a little ebook that's free. And in it is a download that I got about the afterlife from my guide Sanaya, and it's really fascinating going through the various levels that we experience after we transition. So maybe at first you might enjoy eating all your favorite foods, even though you don't need it for nutrition, certainly without a physical body, but for the sheer enjoyment of it, until you realize that with your own consciousness, you can create pleasurable experiences even without a body. And on the soul grows, developing, even on the other side. So that's question number 2. An associated question then, without moving on to the next one, is do we continue to evolve on the other side? Does everyone experience the same thing? And taking into mind what we just discussed, yes, we continue to evolve, but at our own rate. Just like here on Earth, through our own choices, we either grow as a soul and as a human being, or we stay a little bit set in our ways. And so when I tune into spirits in a reading, I don't automatically assume that they're all loving and of higher consciousness. I first see how they feel and what they've come to say. And many of them will tell me that their eyes were open when they get to the other side, and that they didn't know how to express love when they were here, but that they can't wait to greet their loved ones when they get over there and show them how much they've changed. Others simply show up. They just show up and stand there. And then it comes with an apology. And I realized that they're holding back because they weren't able to show their love while they were here. And just by showing up is like their first step in moving forward as a soul on the other side and in giving their apologies. So it's absolutely different for every soul, just like it is here. Okay? All right. Evolution of the soul is what life is all about, whether in a body or out of a body. But it becomes more apparent when you get to the other side, when your choices present immediate feedback. Here, sometimes things have to play out and we see the decisions we made and actions we've taken. We see how they affect us. But on the other side, whatever we create in consciousness is immediate. Alrighty, number 3. But let me first just see what people are saying over here. Aloha from Hawaii. Hello, Beth. And see, the problem is I have my notes in a very large font, but your comments are small here. Clarine is the name. What a pretty name. And Vicky Vargas. Hi. Okay. Nice to see your comments. Next question. Good one. Do we have a choice whether or not we come back to live another lifetime? What do you all think? I can only tell you what my guides Sanaya have told me. Everything that I share with you in this session, I want you to test it in your heart. But absolutely, we have a choice. And it's really funny. I sit in a meditation group and I speak to other groups about these kinds of things all the time. And I can't tell you how many people say, I'm not coming back. I don't want to go through that again, because life is challenging, but that's how we grow. So what it has been explained to me is we get to the other side and we get to rest and learn from the lifetime we just had, as long as we need. Time is very different on the other side. In fact, you might hear there is no time and space in the spirit world. So it's not as if there is a set time. It's through experience, through the growth of the soul, and at some point, the soul decides, for my soul's evolution, where will I experience more growth? If I stay here surrounded by love, or if I go back to a more challenging environment. And that's why my guides, Sanaya, have told us that you humans are the bravest of the brave souls, because you willingly took on these experiences in Earth School, which are some of the toughest curriculum. So, yeah, we have a choice, and while we might think we'd be crazy to come back here, at some point the soul knows that by coming here and by growing, we serve the whole. So, doesn't that give us a greater sense of purpose while we're here? Alrighty, next question. Are souls ever sent to Earth to harm others, to be evil? There are varying opinions about this. You'll find these things in different books. I can only tell you what my guide Sanaya have told me, and what I feel in my heart is absolute truth. And that is that no, a soul would never be sent back or come back to deliberately do harm to another. Why? Because the soul, all souls share the same source, which is love, which is God, which is goodness, which is light. What happens is the soul contains the potential for all that is to express itself. And so we come into a body and we're given, as part of the human curriculum, free will and choice. And it's those choices that determine whether we experience good or bad, whether we express goodness or less than goodness, darkness. So it's the human who comes in with the full potential to do good, but that soul may have certain lessons it needs to work on and will be given situations to make those higher choices. But whether or not the human side, the human projection of that soul makes the higher choices is up to the human projection. And that determines the soul's growth. So I believe that evil is free will gone awry. Alrighty, how does that feel in your heart? That's the true test. And so this leads perfectly into question number 5. If people are adding comments, for some reason my comments aren't coming in. So just know that you can type comments as you're watching. And if some start to pop up, I'll comment on them. It shows 87 comments, but I'm not seeing them. Oh, there they are. Goodness. Huh. I'm afraid to scroll down here. There we go. Let me just play around for a second here. Well, I don't want to lose the picture, so we'll just keep going. Number 5 plays right into the last ones. Are we judged for all of our actions when we die? Are we judged by our actions when we die? Your answer to that depends on if you're buying into human belief systems and what others have told you, or if you've accessed higher consciousness for answers. All I can tell you is what I have experienced personally from my teachers, and again, ask in your heart, but the answer is the only one who judges your actions is you as a soul. There is incredible understanding when you get to the other side. Understanding of what? That human beings make mistakes. And it's how we learn. So forgiveness and understanding, compassion for ourselves when we make mistakes helps the soul to grow. Compassion for others when they do human things adds to the whole. A really beautiful example of this was shared with me by a dear friend, Gail, in Michigan. She's a Donna Eden energy practitioner and is very tuned in to the spirit world. She was working with a client at one point, and the client began to sob and talk about her husband who had recently passed. And she was telling Gail about things she had learned about her husband's behavior after he passed, things that she was having a hard time forgiving him for once they came to light. As she was talking, Gail told me she was stunned to look up in the corner of the room where she was helping this woman and see the woman's husband in spirit hovering in the corner with a guide by his side. The guide sitting there with his arm around the husband, forcing him pretty much, but it's not the right word. I wish I had a better one. There with him to have him listen to his wife, to feel her reactions to his actions. So you see, the guide was not judging the spirit, the husband in the spirit world. The guide was there to provide him loving support, yet to make sure that he experienced the effects of his choices on those left behind. And that is the whole purpose of the life review, which I understand all of us will go through when we pass to the other side. So every action that we take here in this human earth school, every thought that we have, every emotion we experience, we will see that when we get to the other side, passing before our eyes and through our physical experience without a body, our emotional experience, reliving all of it, but this time seeing the effect on everybody we interact with. And you can understand then how the concept of hell came to be. Because if you made mistakes one after another, and your motive was not from a high place, if your mistakes were, if you caused harm to another deliberately, you will feel the effects of that as if you were that person, and that would be a hell. However, if you can see in your life review that the mistakes you made were from good intentions, you'll understand that as well. So that's my understanding of how it works. It feels to me very equitable and is certainly better than a concept of a God who doles out favors to some and punishment to others. That's a human concept of a deity, when the source of all that is, and we are part of that, is pure love. The projection of it here in this human earth school gets to make choices and then learn from them. All right, question number 6. What about babies who die before they're born? Will we see them? How will we know them? Well, babies are souls who come into physical form, and they could be souls who've been around a while, and they could be souls that are newly arisen from the sea of all that is, from the sea of pure potential. So babies who don't get the chance to come into a physical body through abortion or through miscarriage or through a body that wasn't viable, and so the baby was not born at all, they're still souls, and there is still a connection with those parents because that soul decided to be the parent's child. I had a beautiful reading, a wonderful experience in a reading where I was connecting with my client, and I sensed that she had a baby who passed through a miscarriage, and she confirmed this, and it was a baby boy, and she did know that it was a boy. And in this reading, the young boy gave me other evidence that I was connecting with his soul. And he showed me a symbol and he said, I'm coming back again to these parents. We are meant to be together. I'm coming back. This was quite a while ago. I had another reading where the same thing happened. But in this particular reading, I said to the client, I can't prove this at all, but this is what he's telling me. The very next day, that client emailed me and she said, Suzanne, you won't believe this. I just took a pregnancy test and I'm pregnant. So it was beautiful. That little soul, I know she'll see him again. And for those who won't get pregnant again, you will see them when you cross to the other side. And how will you know them? Your heart will tell you. Just like some of you who saw your soulmate here in physical form for the first time and you just know you've known them forever. It's the same thing when you get to the other side. And that child doesn't have to have any form at all. We know each other by that heart connection, by the light. All right. Well, your comments are starting to show up again. Let me see. More people, let's see. Hello, Lisa, Jennifer, Noreen. I recognize so many names, and there are a lot of folks who I haven't yet met. There's Virginia. Thank you for joining me here this afternoon and bringing your energy to this session. All right, number 7 already. Are there other worlds, other beings? I believe there are. How do I know that? Through experiencing them in expanded states of consciousness. And you can do the same. Why? Because you are consciousness first, a human in form second. And there are ways you can train yourself to experience expanded states of consciousness. In fact, you know, I hate to make this sound like a commercial, this session, but at the same time, I produce certain tools as training aids. So I would be remiss in not mentioning this new CD from the Hemisync company was produced by me with them. It's called Mediumship, the Training Ground. And this is how to get yourself into an expanded state of awareness and deep meditation, to know what that feels like, and then to have adventures in consciousness. I'm so proud of that product because this method that I share on that CD, overlaid with the Hemisync tones that help your brain come into a coherent, resonant state. That method is what I use to train myself, not knowing that I would one day be a medium. It's what I did when I simply wanted to connect with my stepdaughter, Susan, who had passed to the other side. Little did I know that every day that I was sitting in the silence, that I was meditating, experiencing expanded states of awareness, and then even the deeper meditation. Little did I know that was the training ground for the work I'm doing now, connecting not just with my stepdaughter, Susan, who I feel from time to time when she wants to visit, but with other people's loved ones who have passed. These kinds of connections don't happen usually in our normal waking states of awareness. So we can learn to connect with the spirit world, connected with our earth school, but that's just one curriculum in the entire school of life that exists in different realities with different forms. If we all arise from the same source, do you think that source would limit itself just to human beings and creatures on this earth? Why, it would play and have fun experiencing itself as any kind of being. It's limitless in the creativity, in the potential. So I know that my calling is to be a medium, to deal with the spirit world connected with this earthly reality. But those who have a calling to experience other realms can explore them at will, because you are consciousness. Okay. Let's see, question number 8. Boy, we're just running right through them. Let me look at comments here for a second. Okay, more from Leslie. Clarine, it looks like it's coming through okay. So again, thank you for your comments. Thanks for joining us. Let's move on to question number 8. Oh, whew, this is a big one and heavy. Will there ever be peace on earth? Believe it or not, you know, put the news aside for a minute. We grow through chaos. But why I say believe it or not, we are actually experiencing a major shift in consciousness. And all of this discomfort that we're experiencing is growth pains. Compare what's going on now with just not even that many years back. We're accepting more of humans loving each other. We're more tolerant of humans loving each other. If you look back, it wasn't that long ago that certain human behaviors were acceptable, and now they no longer are. To some who don't want to change, who don't want to think outside the box, they see change as a threat. But to others, they see change as growth, and the growth is ongoing. Of course, not all change is good, but when it leads to decisions that come more from the heart and not from the head, that leads to more equality, which will ultimately lead to peace. But in the meantime, it's that those who want change versus those who don't want change. I've brought this up before, but to add a little humor to this, my guides Sanaya have expressed it this way. If you go back in the history of mankind, you have what we call the Dark Ages, a very brutal time in human history. And they say that we've made progress. You can see it just by looking at our history. But we have a long way to go. And that's why Sanaya calls our current era the dim ages as compared to the dark ages. So it's hopeful in that that shows a little growth, but it's not a steady growth. We're going like this. It's exponential now, thanks in great part to technology. I mean, there are a lot of things that keep us distant and feeling separate because of technology, but at the same time, it provides all of us to have a forum to speak in things and sessions like this, to meditate as one with groups around the world. We're seeing changes and advances that affect consciousness at a global level. So there is definitely hope. Will we see peace on earth in our lifetime? I'm not naive enough to say yes to that. But will there be peace on earth eventually? I believe there will be. We're headed in the right direction. Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to add to that. How do we raise our consciousness? It all comes back to remembering who we are. And we're not originally these humans. This is the projection of our soul, and all souls are ultimately united as source energy. And it's that source energy that flows through us, that breathes us, that enlivens us, that gives us life, that is life. And because the source of it is love, how we raise our consciousness is by being the presence of love, by expressing love, by choosing love in every moment. And when we make choices that aren't aligned with love and it hurts, then hopefully we learn from that, and the next time we'll make a higher choice. More and more we're seeing other humans make those higher choices, and the ripples go out and raises the light as a whole. Okay. And I just had a couple people ask me about my online courses, Let Your Spirit Soar and Your Emerging Soul. They're filled with practical tools for how to raise our light, how to understand who you really are. There are many tools from many teachers out there, but the greatest tool is simply coming to know who you are by sitting in that power that is you, by asking, who am I? And asking for the answers to come from outside of our story, from outside of the box we put ourselves in. And having that personal experience of yourself as the light makes all the difference in the world. There are a few free meditations on my website under resources that can help you to get to that expanded state where you can ask the questions, who am I? Why am I here? How can I bring more love into this world? All righty. Number 9, when someone dies in a horrific accident or an event, does their soul feel the pain? Do they suffer? Well, those who I've connected with as a medium on the other side have told me that their transition was easy. And especially those who pass in accidents show me that their soul was launched outside of the body before they felt any pain. I question that. I mean, we see accounts of people who perhaps died in a fire, and perhaps the body may have appeared to have been in pain. The soul tells me there's a kind of amnesia, that it detaches from the body. Wow, I just had an image from my guides of how certain creatures, the body keeps moving even though it's no longer sentient. And they're showing me that the soul absolutely feels no pain. But I want to share with you a story that just came through in a reading I did a couple of weeks ago. I shared this in my monthly mentoring session recently, and I'm going to film it separately from this session to put it online on my website and on YouTube, especially at the holidays when people are worrying about their loved ones and who have passed and thinking of those who appear to have suffered when they passed. I mean, I was with my dad in hospice watching as he took his last breaths. And from the way his face was a bit contorted and his breathing was labored, it appeared that he was suffering. But I want to share with you an experience that I had that shows me that the soul is always fine. So I was doing a reading for a woman named Cheryl, who's given me permission to share all of this. And she wanted to hear from her beloved partner named Scott. So I tuned in and tried to connect with Scott, but instead of hearing Scott, I'm hearing a name, Jim. And I said, there's a soul here named Jim. He's telling me he passed from cancer, that he was in hospice before he passed. And boy, is he a joker. He's cracking jokes like crazy and saying, I'm not ready to be pushing up daisies yet. Now that didn't make sense from somebody who appeared to be on the other side. But what stunned me is when Cheryl said, well, I have an Uncle Jim who's in hospice now, passing from cancer. And he was the biggest joker ever. He's like Robin Williams, funny. But I said to her, but this is his soul. It feels exactly to me like souls who have passed to the other side. Could he have possibly passed already? And she said, well, I guess it's possible, but I think I would know. And so I tuned in and I said, okay, Jim, tell me some more about you. I guess it doesn't matter if you've passed or not. You're here to communicate with Cheryl. And Jim gave me the name Gary and Gary. And it turns out Jim's son is Gary and his grandson is Gary. She confirmed this. He showed me working under the hood of a vehicle, and she said he owned a truck repair company. So this is incredible evidence that I'm talking to the soul of somebody who's preparing to die. He showed me that he was married and that 2 of his kids were there with him in hospice, and Cheryl confirmed this. And I said, Cheryl, he's talking about a story of a rattlesnake, something about a rattlesnake being shot. Do you know about that story? And Cheryl didn't. And I said, well, this is really cool, because any skeptic might say that to this point, I'm reading your thoughts about this uncle who's about to die because you're thinking about him. But if you can validate a story about a rattlesnake that was shot, then you can confirm that it's possible to talk to a soul who's in the process of passing. And I want to share with you, after I tell the story, what his major message was for Cheryl. Went on to connect with the love of her life, Scott. He came through with beautiful evidence, but I also heard the name Paul. And Cheryl said, well, my ex-husband Paul connected me with Scott. I tuned in and I said, no, I don't think that's the Paul we're talking about. So we just kind of filed that away. The reading was over, and sure enough, her Uncle Jim had not yet passed. In fact, Cheryl had the experience of him when he passed. He came to her in this brief moment where her heart just opened with love, and moments later, somebody called and said, Uncle Jim just passed. Well, Cheryl asked Jim's wife if there was a story about a rattlesnake being shot, and his wife knew nothing about it. So that was kind of a downer, because she couldn't then prove that. But then all of a sudden, Cheryl remembered, wait a minute. Yes, Paul was my ex-husband, but Paul is also Jim's brother, my Uncle Paul. And she called Uncle Paul and she said, Uncle Paul, is there some story with you and Uncle Jim with a rattlesnake that was shot? And Uncle Paul said, oh my gosh, is there ever? And he proceeded to tell this story about Paul and Jim and their brother Larry when they were much younger, in their late teens, early 20s, and they lived in eastern Colorado, and they went out with their shotguns one day to look for prairie dogs. And there, sticking out of a prairie dog hole, was 3 feet of the end of a rattlesnake, the biting end in the hole. So who knows how long this snake was, but 3 feet. And they looked at each other, these brothers, and they said, Who's going to pull the snake out of the hole? I started laughing as Cheryl's telling me this, thinking, and why would anybody not just leave the snake there? So anyway, they drew straws, and their brother Larry, who usually came out on the good end of this, of everything, drew the short straw. So they said, Larry, you're going to pull the snake out, and we're going to shoot it. Does this sound to you like the Three Stooges? So clearly this was a very memorable story. So Larry grabs the snake by the tail, goes running backwards and flings it into the air. And the other two brothers, Jim and Paul, bam, 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 shoot this snake with their shotguns. They were successful. Well, Paul said to Cheryl, you know what, Cheryl? There's not another living soul on earth who knows that story. We just kind of stopped telling people about it over the years. It's just me and Jim who knew that story. Well, it appears that there is another living soul who knew that story, and it's Jim, who, whether you're in a body or out of a body, the soul is the soul is fine, because here's the message that Jim had for everyone, for all of us, by coming through in that reading, even though he was in hospice and never regained consciousness. His message was, tell everyone I'm okay with this process of dying, and that my body may appear to be suffering, but I'm just fine. What a message. And what a message that we all need to hear, to know that even though our bodies may appear to be suffering, we're not our bodies. That is a projection of our soul, an aspect of consciousness of who we are. And here's a soul on the other side. The brilliance of the soul never ceases to amaze me. To come through in a reading in his final hours and to share a story that only one other person in physical form would be able to validate. There's no other explanation for that than that we are souls and the soul is fine. So please remember Jim's message, that the body may appear to be suffering, but the soul is not. In many cases, in answer, getting back to the original question, when someone dies in an accident or a sudden event, does their soul feel pain? Do they suffer? I can now say with utter certainty, the answer is no. And the 10th question in our special session here, the next 10 questions most often asked about the afterlife and those in it. When I speak to loved ones who have passed, do they hear me? The answer is an unequivocal yes. Spirits I've connected with in my readings have told me over and over, it's like a doorbell rings when you think of me. It's like you're knocking on my heart. I hear you and I draw near. I drop in often, even when you don't think about me, but oh, when you think of me, that heart connection goes out. So let me share with you one of the most awesome moments in one of my readings. I had a mother who had a child on the other side. And I said, after lots of evidence from that child that proved we were connecting with them, that they were right there for that reading, I said, your child is showing me something unusual. A lot of spirits talk about rainbows because they draw your attention to rainbows in the sky. They want you to think of them when you see a rainbow. That's a common sign, but this is different. This soul is showing me, your child is showing me a rainbow that goes from your heart to their heart in the spirit world. And your child just said, clear as day, the connection is good. Does that make sense to you? I asked their mom. And she said, oh, I'm so glad to hear that, because recently I've been trying various techniques to communicate with my child in spirit. And lately I've been imagining a rainbow from my heart to theirs. So to have them confirm that they see that rainbow, they sense it, and the connection is good, what better validation could we ask for than that? So as the holidays approach, please know, yes, every time you think of your loved ones, you hold them in your heart and talk to them, whether silently or aloud, it doesn't matter. They hear you, they feel you. So if you want to increase that connection, Try that rainbow technique. To me, it reminds me of when we were kids and we would have the cans connected with the string. The string of love, the bond of love, that rainbow bridge. We talk about it with our pets who are the same way. They're for us on the other side. Always is there, because what love has brought together cannot be separated. So talk to your loved ones, and I want to assure you, they are always more close on special dates like birthdays and anniversaries and with the date that they pass, and on special holidays. And of course they are, because we think of them so much more then. And I want to really encourage you to listen to your own thoughts and to know that it's your thoughts that cause your suffering. It's not the death that cause the suffering. It's how you perceive it, your thoughts around that passing. Once you come to know that your loved ones are still right here, just like the title of my book, actively participating in your lives here, sitting there at the dinner table with you at holiday events. Once you come to know this by seeing the signs they leave, by feeling their presence, your consciousness raises, and the brighter your light, the easier it is for them to get through to you. So if you're deep in grief, know that that affects your vibration. It brings your light down. Know that your loved ones feel your grief. Put yourself in their position. Perhaps you passed ahead of them and you're looking down, and here they are crying and sobbing and missing you and thinking you're gone forever. And you're trying so hard to impress upon their consciousness, to touch their hearts and say, I'm still right here. Don't cry for me. I'll be here when you cross, but for now, just feel my love. This is not wishful thinking, my friends. This is reality. I pray that you will come to know this by getting in your own expanded state of awareness, practicing deep meditation, and asking, what do I need to do to raise my consciousness enough, to increase my light enough that I am aware of the presence of my loved ones and of the fact that I am love. That is your purpose in life. One of the number one questions people ask, what is my purpose in life? To be the presence of love, to come to know that you are far more than a physical body, that you're a beautiful soul that is always fine, and that the basic essence of the soul and therefore of you is love. That's your purpose. How you express that in the world is up to you. You don't have to do great deeds that affect many, many people. You can reach out a hand to comfort one other person in their time of need, to show them who they are, to help them feel the love within them, to bring peace to one other person. You've made a difference. So if your heart is heavy this holiday season, go serve someone else. Get out of the house. Get out of your thoughts. Open your heart and give it to someone else. I guarantee you that connection will make all the difference in the world. Thank you all so much for joining me. I'm sorry I wasn't able to keep up with the comments on the side, but I'll be able to see them later. We will post this video on my website and on YouTube for anybody that wants to go back and listen again, or share it with your friends. If you know somebody who could use a little lift in the holiday periods, I hope the information that I've shared here has been helpful. I want to invite you to another free event that I'm doing just before the new year to help us close out 2017 and welcome in the new year, a special session with my guide, Sanaya. It will be quite different from this because I'm going to get out of the way. I'm going to enter into a state of deep meditation and allow Sanaya to speak through me live right from here, only not on Facebook. This will be on Zoom. And so you do need to register for that in advance, even though it's free, to ensure there's room for everybody. And you can do that through my website on the events calendar. I believe my website is having a little bit of challenges today. So if it's a little bit garbled when you go on there, well, that's when you practice what Sanaya teaches us to say. in moments of chaos, and that is, isn't that interesting? So just make a note if the website is garbled, go back to SuzanneGiesemann.com at another time. There on the events calendar, you can register for that live session with Sanaya. It's on the 27th of this month, December, at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. And there's nothing like experiencing that energy live. So thank you for joining me today. Thank you for your love. I hope that something I said here has been helpful to you, and may you have a very happy holiday. May your thoughts keep you in a higher place. May you feel the love that surrounds you and share that with others, because that's why we're here. Blessings to all of you, and thank you.